Hello and welcome to the first Agnes Reads Google Hangout. My name is Casey Long. I'm the co-chair of the Agnes Reads Committee, and with me today I have Dr. Elizabeth Quiche, who is the president of Agnes Scott College. So thank you, Dr. Quiche, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yay! So we're so excited to have all of you watching, and if you know anybody who missed this Hangout, then please go ahead and let them know that the video will be posted on the Accepted Students page under the Agnes Reads section. And we would really like to have this be very interactive, so you do have the option to send us questions. If you go to the Google Hangout invitation form, then you'll see a little Q&A button. I made a little sign so you guys would know to look for Q&A, and click on that and you can submit a question to us. And we would just love to know who's watching, so feel free to say hi, what your name is, and where you're from if you want to go ahead and test that out. So we hope you guys will submit questions to us. I'm going to get us started in just a minute with questions, but first let me tell you a little bit more about President Quiche. I have a few little slides here, so let me pull those up. All right, so I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Wait, I don't think my slides came up, did they? Hold on, just one moment. Let me do that one more time. Technology. And just while I'm telling you about technology, you should know that there are some children in the room next to President Quiche right now. So if you hear some screaming, there are just some campers that are very excited. So I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Elizabeth Quiche. She is the 8th president of Agnes Scott College and has served in this role since 2006. As you can see from this photo array, she is a very warm, engaging, and accessible leader of Agnes Scott College, and she even allows all the members of the community come talk with her during some scheduled office hours. So she's very accessible. You can see people love her, and we know you're going to enjoy meeting her too. She's done a lot for the college. Under her leadership, the college instituted new undergraduate programs in the sciences and in public health to ensure that we're enabling women to become leaders in these fields. She's also launched Agnes Advantage, which creates support for study abroad, internships, and mentored research. And most recently, she's led the college through the planning of the Summit Initiative, which is something you're probably going to hear more about when you come onto campus this fall. But basically, it's going to increase the amount of global and leadership opportunities for all students. So we're really excited about that. So thank you so much, President Quiche, for joining us today. And let me make sure I can get back, see if I can get back to you real quick. I am stuck on my slide. All right, there we go. We're back. Okay. So I'm going to get us started with the questions, and basically my first question is thinking about the book, which let me introduce you all to it in case you just happened upon this hangout and don't realize that we're going to be talking about Half the Sky by Nicholas Kristof and Cheryl Wu-Dunn. I wanted to ask President Quiche what she thinks about the book and why it's an important book for the Agnes Scott College community.
Well, thanks, Casey, and hello, everybody. I want to welcome all of you to this Google Hangout. We don't know who's out there, so this is kind of exciting, but I want to especially welcome our incoming students, and particularly the members of the class of 2018. I'm wearing red in your honor, so can't wait for you all to be joining us on campus in August. And I'm really excited to have a chance to participate in this Google Hangout and to talk about this book. And this Half the Sky by Nicholas Kristof and Cheryl Wu-Dunn is, I think it's one of the most important books that's been written in the last decade, and it's extraordinarily well aligned with Agnes Scott's mission. You know, our mission, we have this wonderful one-sentence mission statement. We educate women to think deeply, live honorably, and engage the intellectual and social challenges of their time. And what Kristof and Wu-Dunn make so clear in this book is that empowering women, the long journey of women to be equals of men in all aspects of life, to have equal respect, equal opportunities, equal education, to have security, that is truly one of the greatest intellectual and social challenges of our time. It's also so well aligned with Agnes Scott because 125 years ago this fall, actually, September 24th, 1889 was when Agnes Scott opened its doors as Decatur Female Seminary. And the founding vision of Agnes Scott was that this would be a school that would educate and empower young women who would then go on to make a difference in their communities. And even though women's lives have changed so dramatically in those 125 years, and certainly the opportunities available to Agnes Scott's graduates have expanded dramatically, that core mission is just as important today as it was in 1889. So this book, which I think is a real eye-opener for all of us about the challenges that girls and women face around the world, but also the powerful ways in which girls and women and their allies, both men and women, are making a difference. It's just a very, very powerful read and a great book for Agnes Scott.
Great, thank you so much. And it's interesting that we chose this book, and maybe it's just something that made me more aware by reading this book that of all the issues that are currently happening. We had the All Women, #AllWomen campaign, the Bring Back Our Girls. There's been a lot of things this summer that seem to be relevant to this book, and I know that also in the Atlanta area that we have a lot of resources. What are some of the things that, as students who are going to be coming to Atlanta, coming to Agnes Scott College, what are some of the ways that they can engage with these issues here?
Sure. There's just so many ways in which students can get involved with the issues that are covered in this book, beginning with courses. I mean, we have courses all across the curriculum that address whether it's education or health. I know, for example, this fall there's a class on maternal health. There's a class on, I believe, on gender violence. There are classes all across the curriculum that touch on and that focus on the issues that are covered in the book. Casey, you mentioned, and by the way, I want to thank Casey for doing this. One of the cool librarians, the very cool librarian at Agnes Scott. Casey mentioned that we have a new strategic plan that students will get a chance to hear a lot more about this fall. And in the next few years, we will be introducing some courses that will be interdisciplinary courses focused on the kinds of issues that are discussed in Half the Sky, so that students will have an opportunity to take an issue like education and look at it from all of these different disciplinary angles. Because I actually think one of the other ways in which this is a great book for Agnes Scott is it shows you the relevance of a liberal arts education. You take the question of how do you enable girls and women to become educated? Well, deworming, if you've read the chapter, you know that health initiatives can sometimes be one of the most important factors that enable girls to be in school. But also women's land rights, so law and health and biology, all of these things work together, and you have to understand things from different disciplinary perspectives in order to really be able to make a difference. So certainly in the classroom. But that's just the beginning. There are opportunities as interns. Students can intern, in fact, at microfinance organizations, and we'll have a Google Hangout later this summer with the CEO of a local microfinance organization that has a lot of Scotty interns. You can work with the local refugee community. You can work on women's health initiatives. There's a lot of women's organizations here in Decatur and Atlanta. So there's many opportunities there. And then with our really strong study abroad program, global awareness trips, as well as other opportunities for study abroad, students are going to have lots and lots of opportunities to go around the world and to see firsthand some of these issues. We had a trip a few years ago where students went to Benin in West Africa and met with women activists. We just had a group of students come back from New Zealand, and that was a trip that was specifically focused on women's issues in New Zealand. So study abroad, internships, activism, and of course the core, which is studying and learning. That's all of the many ways in which you can get involved.
Great, thank you so much. I'm very excited to report that we don't have a question, but we had somebody use the Q&A app to say hello. Her name is Maria Ma. I'm not positive if I'm saying your name correctly, and I apologize. As soon as you come and to Agnes Scott, you got to find me in the library and let me know if I got that right. But she said she'll be participating in this Hangout and we'll ask a few questions. And she's an incoming student from the class of 2008. So woohoo! Yay!
Whoa, welcome,
We're
Maria.
so glad to see you. So before you came to Agnes Scott, I know you've worked on a lot of human rights issues, and this is very near and dear to your heart. Can you tell us more about your background and your career path?
Sure. Yeah, that's another reason why this book means so much to me. So some of it is very personal. I'm the daughter of refugees from Hungary in Eastern Europe, and my dad was arrested actually by both the Nazis and the communists, and my mother was also, as a young mom, she was only 20 years old, and she was arrested by the communists. So I grew up in a context of really hearing a lot of stories about human rights struggles and efforts to stand up for what's right, and that was a profound influence on me. And then I got involved in Amnesty International when I was in high school. Actually had a summer internship at Amnesty International and helped to start an Amnesty International chapter at my college, Davidson College, when I was as an undergraduate, and then wrote my dissertation on human rights, and have actually taught quite a bit about human rights. And one of the most meaningful experiences I had, which is directly related to topics that are covered in Half the Sky, is I had an opportunity to serve as an expert witness in an asylum case in Washington, D.C., which was around giving asylum to a woman and her two daughters and her husband from Egypt, in order to protect the daughters from female genital cutting. And I actually had undergraduate students assist me in the research to put that case together, and they did receive asylum. So
Wow.
so that was, as I think about things I've had opportunities to be involved in that have been really inspiring, and that I feel so grateful to have been a part of them. That is certainly very high on the list. So those are just some of the reasons why this book really speaks to me, and I'm pretty passionate about women's rights being human rights.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I didn't know all that about your family background. That's pretty amazing. So it doesn't look like we've gotten any questions from the audience yet, which is okay. We really encourage everybody to join in. But I do have some questions that I've pulled together just in case. So one of the questions was, the book talks a lot about oppression in other countries, but it would be interesting to know more about in the United States. Is there also the same sort of things? I know myself as a woman growing up here that I do remember feeling a little, there were some less opportunities, but overall I feel like I've had a lot of opportunities. I feel like it's sometimes not as easy to see in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree that it's interesting. I was before we got on the Google Hangouts, Casey and I were talking about that this week here in Atlanta, the new National Center for Civil and Human Rights opened, which is an incredible museum. And for those of you who are coming as first-year students, you will you have a lot to look forward to in visiting that museum and hopefully interning and having opportunities to get involved at that museum. It's a very cutting-edge, innovative museum that covers the American civil rights movement, which, of course, Martin Luther King was in Atlanta. Atlanta was really the heart of the American civil rights movement, and there's a terrific exhibit about that, as well as the papers of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then there's also this really fascinating multimedia exhibit about the global human rights movement. And it covers all kinds of issues the many rights that are elaborated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and how the efforts to fight for them are very much a continuing process. So specifically in the United States, and thinking about Half the Sky, we know that there is a huge issue with human trafficking and sex trafficking, both domestic, American young people and young girls being trafficked into sex slavery, as well as being trafficked across international borders. And I'm very sad to say that Atlanta, actually, because of our big airport and conventions, I mean, there's sex trafficking in Atlanta, and there's a lot of efforts to fight sex trafficking, and I know that students have gotten involved in that effort. Sexual violence is still very much a clear and present danger, and it's one that we continue to have to work in multifaceted ways to address, both at home and abroad. And so I think that's a really important issue. There's a lot of other things. There are very high rates of incarceration, particularly of young African American men, and that's one of the women that's profiled in the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, I'm proud to say, is an Agnes Scott alum, Constance Curry, who, as a young white woman, was very involved in the civil rights movement. She went on then to write a very important book about the civil rights movement in Mississippi called Silver Rights. Mm-hmm. But she's quoted in the Center for Civil and Human Rights exhibit talking about how the incarceration of young black men in such high rates is one of the greatest civil rights issues of our time. We also have stigmatization of different groups in this country, undocumented people, lesbian, gays, transgender individuals. There's all sorts of issues that I know lots of people here at Agnes Scott are involved with. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and then perhaps in just as importantly, maybe less dramatically, but if you think about opportunities for women to lead, women are still very much in a minority on boards of directors of companies, in elected office. We still have a long way to go. So, and I know Scotties are always at the forefront of those efforts, and I hope that some of the very people who are on this Google Hangout will, who knows what they will go on to do, and as leaders to make the world a better place.
And we didn't necessarily talk about this, but in prior conversations, but talking about opportunities for women, it seems like more women are graduating from college in the United States, and there seems to be a shift in the job market too, that there is some empowerment. And what I thought was really pretty amazing in Half the Sky, especially chapter 11, when they're talking about the microcredit, is the power of giving women money. There's something, it seems like, that women have a tendency to be nurturers, but they're also extremely capable of managing finances, and once given money, able to transform that into something that's going to be beneficial not just for themselves, but for their family and for their community. So that was pretty remarkable.
I agree, and I it's interesting. We actually had Muhammad Yunus, who's discussed in the book, who is a Nobel Peace Laureate, who founded Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. He came to Agnes Scott a couple of years ago, and he will be coming back to Atlanta, and Agnes Scott students will have a chance to see him and other Nobel laureates. There's actually going to be a summit of Nobel laureates in 2015, and we are going to be one of the sponsoring organizations of that summit. So we're very excited about that. But Grameen Bank, which is in the chapter in Half the Sky, they talk about an effort, a microfinance effort that was inspired by Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank has actually opened a branch in Atlanta. So microfinance is a very interesting tool for investing in women, particularly low-income women, and enabling them to start businesses and to really become economically self-sufficient. And you know, that whole notion of investing in women, of harnessing women's entrepreneurial talents and energies. You know, we are launching a business major at Agnes Scott, and I've been very impressed at the number of Scotties, including some very impressive young alums who have started their own companies, and often, as you mentioned, Casey, they're starting companies that have a public benefit. You know, either because they take a portion of their profits and they put them towards a good cause, or the very thing that they're actually manufacturing or selling or doing, the service they're providing, is of public benefit. So there's a lot of really creative entrepreneurial energy out there, and many opportunities for students to pursue that here.
That's great. Well, it doesn't look like we have many questions. And we do have 8 viewers at this moment. I know that there's going to be more people that are going to be watching later. So let me tell you just a little bit more about what the students are going to have to be doing this summer. I know that they're reading chapters 10 through 14, which covers investing in education. It covers microcredit and financing, and then talks about some of the steps that people can take to get involved and create action. So there's this whole discussion about charity versus more legislative approaches. I think there was a discussion about the power of doing petitions and lobbying. So they'll be reading those chapters, and then for August 1st, what they have to do is they have to submit a letter to their advisor. So this is something brand new that they're doing. In the past, we've had them just write a reflection, but we really didn't feel like those reflections and those creative projects were getting to the right people, that not the right people were being able to see those and really do something with it. So we want them to start building a relationship with their advisor from the get-go that talks about how the issues in this book, how do they feel about them, and how does it relate to their own aspirations? Have they been doing things already with these kind of issues, or are there other ways that they've been volunteering their time? Where do their interests lie, and what motivates them? So we're kind of hoping that they'll use this as a launch pad for developing a relationship with their advisor. And I know that you've been working on trying to create more support for students with it to improve their advising across the curriculum. So that is one of the things that they're going to be doing, and I hope that if any of them have any questions about that, they are welcome to contact me. But that's one of their activities. And then when they arrive on campus, they'll be engaging in a book discussion. So the things that they've written in their letter, they'll not only be talking about with their advisor, but they'll also be sharing that with at least 15 other students in small book discussion groups. That will happen, I believe it's the week of orientation, so I'll have to double check that date. It's on the accepted students page. So that's going to be a wonderful opportunity for them.
That's terrific. Yeah, I hope I get to, I want to participate in some of those if I can. That'd be great. That's wonderful. Right? Yeah. That's great.
So those are some of the programs that we have for them. Is there anything else that you'd want to share with the students about their experience here or the issues?
Sure. No, I just a couple of other things I'd love to share. You know, as you're reading this book, and I hope that some of you will be inspired to read the whole book, not just chapters 10 through 14. But there's so much in there, and I'm delighted to hear about this this assignment to write a letter about this. I know that for me, one of the experiences I had in college was learning about all these issues in the world, and sometimes feeling a bit overwhelmed by them, and thinking, how can I make a difference? And I think one of the great things that Christoph and Woo-Dun do in their book is they give you some really concrete examples of how people can make a difference, and things that you can do right now, to get involved in, as they say, the movement for the empowerment of girls and women. But I guess one of the bits of advice I have for students, because it was certainly true for me, is that college is this incredible opportunity to learn about a lot of things, to test out ways of being involved, and to see what really fits you, because you can't do everything, right? And to figure out what is it where your talents and your passions and your interests are all aligned. And sometimes it takes a while. It certainly did for me to kind of figure out how these things fit together, and where can I make a difference, and where can I put my skills to use. And so I think it's great to start that process from the very beginning by reflecting and discussing this with your advisor, and just be open to the journey. I think that one of the things that's so powerful about the book for me is that it is a very inspiring book. It's also, you might say, it's a sobering book, because not only does it lay out just how many horrible issues there are, and how much suffering there is in the world, some of which we, before we read the book, we might not have been aware of. It also points to some of the complexities of trying to make a difference. Christophe and Woo-Dan are very clear about sometimes efforts to address issues don't actually have the impact that they're intended to have. But they, so that's the sobering part, is to always be self-critical about the impact of what you're doing, and learn from it. And I have a friend, her name is Stacey Abrams. She's actually an elected representative and on the board of trustees at Agnes Scott. But she talks about how life always throws a lot of failure your way, and the most important question to ask yourself is, do you fail forward? And I think one of the things that Christophe and Woo-Dan show is that there have been instances where people have tried to make a difference with an issue. So let's say addressing female genital cutting, or really trying to get more girls to school, and it didn't work. And so then you ask the question, well, why isn't it working? And how can I keep working at this and be persistent? And so the most inspiring part of the book, I think, is that it shows the impact people can have, and it also shows us that even an issue, and in the final chapter, in chapter 14, they make reference to something that is one of the most inspiring stories, I think, in human history, and that is the story of the British movement to ban the slave trade. And it's not a story that a lot of, certainly, Americans may not be that familiar with, but there was an effort, and it took about 50 years, but there was an effort by activists. In fact, some people say that Thomas Clarkson's effort to ban the slave trade was the first mass human rights movement in human history. And it involved all sorts of people, parliamentarians and writers and former slaves and all kinds of people, factory workers, all sorts of people who were involved in this movement. And it succeeded. It took 50 years, just like the movement for women to get the vote. It took 75 years, probably longer than that actually, but at least 75 years for American women to get the vote. And so it's very inspiring too, because it points to how persistence can really it can tackle issues that appear intractable, and take them from nobody even sees it as a problem to everybody sees it as a problem but thinks it's intractable, to actually solving it. And so I guess my two pieces of advice are to recognize that there's a lot of complexity to these issues, but persistence really pays off. But also to be patient in your own college journey in figuring out where you fit in all this, because every person has their own journey, and that's one of the great parts of an Agnes Scott education, is that you learn so much about yourself, and you learn things that you are good at that you didn't even know about before you got here, and you learn about some of your learning edges, and out of that comes a much more profound sense of how you can make a difference in the world.
That's great. We actually have a question. So I'm very excited about that. So our question is, and it's a two-parter. Well, it's more. It starts with comments, and then so I think it's mainly comments. But let me just go ahead and read through it.
Sure.
I'm not sure if this makes sense, but to me, some of the oppression that I feel women face socially in the United States, in terms of being discouraged to go on for higher education, and be seen equally as beautiful in in the media. So I think what she's saying is that that there's still some discouragement of pursuing higher education, and also the portrayal of women in the media, especially with the photoshopping of bodies. She goes on to say, what I mean by this from the schools I've gone to is that a lot of women have been glorified in music videos to be and are altered to be physically attractive. I know that there are a lot of videos and music that talk about beauty of a woman being sensual and not so much in education. So I guess, again, it's how are women portrayed in the media, and
Yes.
what is the value of smart women?
Yes, great, and thank you for those great comments and that question. And I agree. I mean, I think that there is. I mean, and it's a great example of another form of we might call it. Almost a set of micro inequities or micro oppressions, but they are really powerful in their impact, which is that, one of the ways I like to talk about it is that there are so many messages in our culture that signal, especially to young women, that what's most important about you isn't what's between your ears. It's not your brain, it's not your agency as a person in the world, as a leader, but rather as as an object of attractiveness, and I certainly think music videos and other aspects in the media sort of reinforce that. Not to say that some of the women who perform in those videos are then are very successful and are artists in their own right. And so all these things are complicated. They're always complicated. But in terms of the message that young women get, I do think that there are some pretty pernicious messages about not taking yourself seriously, about caring more about, in a sense, how others perceive you rather than how you're perceiving the world, where, I think it can really get people hung up on, what do I look like and what do people think about me? And it's actually one of the reasons why I think a place like Agnes Scott is so powerful and so important, is that, we are a place where, being smart is cool. And students say this and graduates say this all the time, that this was a place that really built their sense of self-confidence, that gave them a sense of self-worth, or strengthened their sense of self-worth and their sense that, I can do it. I mean, I don't, I can be a change agent in the world. And my opinions matter, and my views matter, and you throughout Half the Sky, that's one of the most moving aspects of the stories that are shared, of women coming to realize, I matter and my views matter, and I am a person of dignity and worth, and I think that. And in terms of sort of saying, well, I want to be an educated person, and I want to be a leader in whatever field I want to pursue. That is very, very important. And so it's kind of an interesting form, I think, of you could call it cultural oppression or gender disparity, that's very much present in the United States and in many other cultures as well, and it's one that I think young women and all women of all ages need to fight against. And I guess the last thing I would say also is that, and this is one of the reasons why I think it's so important for more women to be out there telling stories about women, and being filmmakers and being musicians, is showing that, if you will, smart is sexy, smart is also attractive. So and I think that's a very important part of the women's movement as well, is getting those messages and stories out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I've been watching Mad Men lately, and the key,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
which is interesting in terms of oppression.
Very interesting.
The line that I always remember Don Draper saying is, if you don't like the conversation, you got to change the conversation. And I think that that's something that the students here get the skills and the language to really talk knowledgeably about the issues that they feel passionate about. So I think that's a great point. Well, I believe that that's pretty much all that we have for today. Again, do you have anything else that you want to share?
I just want to thank the folks who participated, and thank you, Casey. And and I look forward to welcoming the students on campus and to many, many more good, rich conversations about Half the Sky and all the issues that it covers.
Great. So I want to let everybody know that we do have a few more events coming. Let me pull up my slides real quick to share that with you. I closed it out earlier. Okay. So we have some more of these Hangouts coming up, and I know as it gets closer to the time period when you need to finish writing up that letter, finish up the book, that you're probably going to be wanting to chat some more. So either share this video with friends that you know are interested in learning more about these issues, or let them know that we have 2 more Google Hangouts coming up. One is Investing in Education with Aditi Adhikari. She's going to be fantastic. She's all the way in Nepal right now, but she's going to be joining us, and she's an alumni of Agnes Scott. She graduated in 2013, and I remember her here when she'd come to the reference desk, because that's where I work in the library. She'd always ask questions that were pretty challenging, and it was always really exciting because she was working on really interesting things. But she's currently in Nepal, and she's working with the schools there, so she's going to share her thoughts with you about the Chapter 10, Investing in Education, and I think that's going to be really exciting. And then, as President Kish mentioned, we have a relationship with ACE Loans, the CEO, Grace Frick. She's had several Agnes Scott students be interns at ACE Loans, which is a microcredit organization here in Atlanta. And she's going to be talking about that issue, how domestically there are microcredit loans and what they've been doing with it, how that's transformed people's lives. So I think that should be pretty exciting. I think both of these will be helpful in terms of thinking more deeply about the issues and how you can articulate it to your advisor. And then that advisor letter will be due on Friday, August 1st. So go to the Accepted Students page and you will find the link to get to that form so you can submit it. So those are just some of the things that we have happening. And I just want to thank President Kish. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being here with us. I've learned a lot myself. And I want to thank everybody else for attending. I hope that you have a fantastic summer and that you will contact us through the Agnes Reed's social media sites if you have any questions. And you can also contact me, Casey Long, at clong@agnescott.edu. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. So thank you again, President Kish.
Thank you. This was fun.
Great. And everyone have a fantastic day. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.